It's been a while since I did a colour study, so why not get back to it with my least used colour, red. Hi everyone, Jane here. Thank you for watching my video today. I have not done one of these colour studies in ages. If you are new to my channel, I have been over the past few months, not sure when I started, doing some colour studies where I take a selection of different mediums all in a colour family, and I do some sort of swatching on a page that I've developed within my Etchr sketchbook, and then I do that in real time, and then I do a usually sort of an abstract kind of grid journaling type project on the other page, which I do in a time lapse with a voiceover. So I thought, just in case you haven't seen them, I do have a playlist on my channel. So if you go to the actual sort of front page of my channel, not sure what it's called, is it cover page or something like that, you'll see there's some playlists, and there should be one in there that I think I called colour studies but I can't guarantee it's called that. But so you'll see in there so far we have had purple, let me go through, gold and amber, pink, green, coral, yellow, that was a Kuritake one, grey, that was grey, that was before I did the swatchy bit, and plum. Plum was the first one I did with the swatching, then the sort of the abstract page. You see, I started off like that. I'm getting more and more more and more adventurous as I go. There is also, I do believe, a teal and turquoise one, which isn't in this book because it was the very first one I did, and I do believe that's on the playlist as well. But if you're interested in any of the other ones, do please go and check them out and have a little look. Now, I'm doing red today. It had to come eventually. Now, I don't dislike red. I'm going to get that straight out the way. I have not got a problem with red. I think red is a perfectly beautiful colour. However, it is a colour that I didn't realise that I didn't use until fairly recently, when I was sort of looking in my paint palettes that I was setting up and realising that I really don't choose a lot of red to go in with my watercolours. I think, to be honest, it's not that I don't choose red. I don't tend to choose warm reds, and yet I like warm reds. Warm reds are really useful for certain, things that you might paint. But if I'm doing anything abstract, I don't tend to maybe gravitate towards it. If I was going for a sort of a colour within that family, I'd go probably for more of a magenta sort of colour. So the first thing I had to think about when I wanted to do this page was that I wanted to make sure that I was dividing up my reds into cools and warms, and I wanted to make sure I represented both sides of the colour family. So when we're talking about cool reds, we're talking about reds that are leaning more towards the blue side of the colour wheel, that have a more cool undertone, sort of a blue or a purplish tone to them. And when we talk about the warm reds, we're talking about ones that are sort of heading towards more of the orangey yellowy side of the colour wheel, so they've got that warm undertone. So I have chosen 6 mediums in a cool red and 6 mediums in a warm red as far as I can. And then I was sort of thought, well, I'm going to look up and find out what other people say are cool reds and warm reds. So all this information, I would say, if you are really interested and you want to find out more, because I am not an expert on any of this, I just know what I know from listening to other people and reading about things, and I'm not trained at all in art colour theory or anything like that. But I did look up Jane Blundell, and I will find her website and I will link it in the description box below, along with a list of what I have used. And she has really interesting information about different sort of parts of the colour wheel. And for cool reds, she had down Alizarin Crimson, different sorts of carmines and different sorts of rose, like a quinacridone rose, those sort of colours. And for warms she had down Scarlet, Vermillion and Cadmium Red as examples of warm reds. So I used that to help me choose my colours. Now obviously that's not always going to be relevant if you're choosing things like distress inks, because they aren't named by, you know, the traditional colour names. They have their own names. So for example, I've picked for a warm red, I picked Fired Brick because I know that Fired Brick is going to be more on that orangey side. The Woodies don't have anything written on them, but you know, that's fine. But what I will do then is I will start swatching. Now the only reason I've got a piece of paper on here is I'm not trying to cover anything up, secret squirrel or anything like that. It's just to keep this page clean, because to be able to fit everything on the screen, I needed to have my materials there, and I didn't want to put them, I'll just prove to you, look, I didn't want to put them directly onto the paper, so in case it got them dirty. Now I've already gone ahead and I've used, I will show you, I've used this stencil, which is the Tim Holtz THS 179, and it's called Wheel, and it's like a colour wheel, but you can, it's not just for using for colour wheels, you can use it, you know, just as pattern on pages, which I have done previously. But I just drew through the sections one way and then I went the other side and did the others, because I just thought it'd be quite nice to have a bit of a colour wheel. Now I'm not doing all different things in each one, I'm using each section to be my swatch. So on this half of the wheel I have got my cools, and on this half of the wheel I've got my warms, and I've already gone ahead and written down which mediums I am going to be placing in there. Now I tried to choose different mediums across the board, so I didn't want to pick like a cool gelato, cool red gelato and a warm red gelato. I wanted to try and get a range of different mediums. So I'm going to start with the cools, because the cools are more my sort of comfort zone. And the first one I've got here is a Faber Castell Pitt Artist Big Brush pen, and this is pink Carmine. So as you can see, Carmine is in that list, and I'm just going to I think I might just do the top one for now. If in the future I come back and do something else in the other sections, then I might do, but for now I'll just colour the top. So you can see how that is sort of leaning towards a sort of more a pinky purpley type of red. Now Brusho pigment powder, I've got Alizarin Crimson, which is again, it's in that list, and Alizarin Crimson is actually a red that I do enjoy. Now I try not to take the lids off these. Now this is a pigment powder, a little goes a long way. They are very intense. I think they're dye based, so you only want a little tiny bit. Now you can use these by sprinkling them on, spritzing and getting a really lovely burst of colour, because they have like a mixture to make the colour. But I actually just want the colour straight. I don't want to get that burst, and I also don't want to make very much at all. So I'm just going to put the tiniest little bit of powder out, because the other thing I do find with this is that if you sprinkle any pigment powders and spritz them, they travel a long way. Now I'm not going to spray directly into the powder, I'm going to spray to the side, because if I spray on that powder, the chances are it is going to fly up in the air. Let's get a bit of water as well, so let's mix it up. There we go. So you can straight away see it's much more on the pinky side of red, and let's put that one down. In fact, this is very much a pinky alizarin crimson. Normally I would say it would be more red than this, but that is very pink. But let's see what happens when it dries, because you know, you can sometimes things dry totally different colour to what they are when you put them out wet. Right, the next one is alcohol marker. Obviously this paper is watercolour paper. I say obviously, it's not obvious at all. It is watercolour paper, it's 100% cotton, so the alcohol marker is probably not going to be overly keen on this paper. Alcohol markers like you know, a smoother surface, and one where they can sink and then the alcohol can evaporate. But I am going to put it on anyway. This one is, let me see, it is Vivid Red, and I chose it because I thought it did look like it was more on the cool side. This will probably sink very much into this cardstock. Gosh, they're very different at the moment, aren't they? This is good though, because I was concerned that when I did my piece, its auger was going to be very samey. But at least I've got some different tones going on. So this is a Gelato. This one is Red Cherry. I'm not sure if this is overly... I picked it because it was probably the most cool red that I had. You know, I'm not going to take this as gospel. These are not all desperate, you know, definitely going to be warm or cool. We're going to just hope that they are mostly more cool than warm. But some of them may be more sort of in the middle, more of a neutral sort of red. Yeah, I can see. I feel that that's probably going more towards a warmer red, but it's, you know, that's still fine. Coloured pencil. I've got my Lyra, Rembrandt, Polycolor Lyra, and this one is Dark Carmine. Let's go. Let's do a nice light one first. Then let's go a bit darker across half. And let's give another layer across part of it. And then give another layer just to see how much colour we can get there. So yep, so I would say that was definitely a cooler red. And then we have Neocolour 2, which is Carmine. So again, another Carmine. So Neocolour 2s are water soluble crayons. So I will colour half. What I'll do is I'll colour half solidly with the crayon, and then I'll put a bit this side and water that one bit out so that we can see the difference. And again, you can see that pinkiness coming out there where it's more of a cooler red. But when it's in the solid, it looks very much more of a red than a pink. But once you water it out, you can see. And often that's how you can see the undertone if you water something out. That's probably why, actually, to be fair, with the Brusho, probably if you did it more solid, it might be more of a red. But as you water it out, that pinky undertone comes out. So those are my cool reds. Now I've got my warm reds. So we've got watercolour marker. So I've got this one. This is a prism marker by HunkyDory. It doesn't have a name. It's just 094. What is that? Oh, it's Gelato. I often walk around like that. What is this? Right, so this is a watercolour marker, and straight away you can see how that is much more of an orange tone. Now, because it's a watercolour marker, I can colour it either solidly like that, or let's put some this side and water it out. Now see, what I could have done is maybe if I wanted to use those other sections would be to do one bit in solid, one bit in watered out, and use the different sections that way. So there we go, right down to a much paler colour there. Woody pencil. Now woody pencils are also water soluble. They are actually made, designed to be used by children, which is why they're so chunky, and they are washable and all the good things you need for children, but they are very expensive because mixed media people have decided they like them, including myself. They're a good fun supply, and they're by Stabilo. They're a good quality product, but they are, you know, more aimed at children than they were. Well, they were initially aimed at children, I should say. I should think by now they must have worked out that they're not just being bought for children. So again, so I think the warm ones are possibly going to be more sort of samey. I'm not sure. But next one, Daniel Smith watercolour, and I picked out Deep Scarlet, mostly because I thought If they are going to be very sameish in tone, maybe a deeper colour would be better. I wonder whether I'm just going to wipe that up now. Obviously, usually you'd probably, oh sorry, I'm making a noise, would use that up, but because of I just need the space, I haven't got tons of space, so I am just going to clean that off. Let's give it a dry as well before we put the paint on, and then we will add a little bit of watercolour on here, and just the tiniest bit. Oh, there's more binder coming out than anything there actually. Yeah, that's a bit better. Woo! I'll get the lid on. Right, here we go. Right, let's get. See, this one is a lot. This is as it's deep sky, it's going to be a little bit darker, quite a bit darker, but you still can see how that's got that warmer tone. Now these are the ones, do you know, I don't know why I don't use them, so I just find them, I just don't find much use for them quite often. Let me know in the comments how you find red. I just don't know why, I just find it a tricky colour. Right, the Arrtx acrylic brush marker. Again, these don't have numbers, so I'm going by the colour on the lid. That's probably not always a good plan with things like this because they don't always exactly match, but I'm hoping this means it is some sort of warm red. It's got a number, it's number 28. So there we go, that is a warm red. I do like the way these go down. They're nice solid colour. Archival Ink Pad. Now I went for Vermillion because that was on the list that she had for the warm reds. Vermillion I always feel is more sort of towards a browny red, but it is. I actually, of all the reds, this is probably what I do use. And now I'm going to try and get a bit down like this. This is how I normally do it. So like that, probably not the best for my ink pad, but I will grab the same stamps that I've been using every time I do this from my Make a Mark set. So which is this one. I will grab a block and we'll stamp, maybe we'll have to stamp over the top. I apologise if anybody doesn't like any kind of beetles. It is a ladybird though, and ladybirds are lovely. I hope that's, oh, yep, sort of came out there. So you can see that's very much of more of a browny type of red. And then finally, I have got fired brick. I'm going to keep that because I will stamp with that. I have wiped it, but to be fair, Archival dries on your block stamp quite quickly. Doesn't damage it, it just dries, and it gives a nice key to your stamping. Right, so this is fired brick, so let's go. So again, you can see, oh, that's lovely actually. Do you know what? I hardly ever use fired brick. I had a little look at Lumberjack Plaid because I did think that was a cool red, but actually it was more of a, well, I do need that still now. It was more of a sort of a mid red. And let's give it a stamp in there as well. There we go. Quite similar actually to the Vermillion when it's stamped out. Not when it's blended out, it's a bit more, got an orangey rather than a browny tone. But very similar, I would have said. So here's our two halves of our colour wheel here with our cools and our warms. They just need to dry off a bit. So you can see very much pinker tones, cooler tones on this side, and very much more orangey browny sort of vibe going on that side. So I'm thinking that because this could be very samey, I may break this up into smallish grid, because I think a big block of all those reds is just going to be too much. So I'm thinking that if I've split them and I've got the white lines in between, that will make it more visually appealing. So I will get that all set up, and then I will do a project in time lapse with a voiceover. If you have enjoyed it so far, do please keep watching till the end. But also, if you could give us a thumbs up, that would be fantastic. And if you're not already subscribed and you think that you would like to do that, please do hit that subscribe button. And I will see you on the other side. Okay, so I usually start off these sort of grids by using the water-soluble products first of all to sort of get down a base. But I decided for a change to go with a bit of Distress ink, and rather than watering it with like squishing some into the mat and painting it on, I decided to use my brush. Then I'm going in with some of the Daniel Smith watercolours. I just wanted to use up what was on the little dish. Unfortunately, I could have probably done with a little bit more, but I really didn't want to put any more out. So I was making sure to water this bit right down, so it became a little bit lighter than what I probably would have wanted. And then I'm going in with the Neocolour too. Now, as these are water soluble, I thought that it would be nice to sort of just put some colour down to start with, and then get the brush in with the water and water some of the I can't think of what the word is. Water some of it out. But as I was doing it, it wasn't as dark as I wanted, so I was going back in with the Neocolour 2 again, just to add some extra colour for me to be able to really get some depth, because I was sort of at this point trying to get some different tones and depths of colour in the project. Unfortunately, I did in a little while do something that sort of maybe made a bit of it redundant, but I enjoyed the process. So I'm going in with the Gelato, and these are also water reactive, so you can water those out as well. So I'm just put down some lines, and then I wasn't trying to overly water them out, but I just wanted to blend them a little bit. Then this is the point where I thought, shall I be brave? Shall I stick some of this Brusho powder on and spritz it out? And I did, which did mean it did cover up some of what I'd already done, but actually I quite liked it afterwards, but I did take a bit of a risk. So once that was dry, I knew that I needed to add some sort of definition back into this page. So I'm going in with the Archival ink and one of my stamps from the Make a Mark set. And I went with the big circles because I was thinking that I could perhaps colour these in afterwards, or I wasn't really sure, or add some sort of extra marks. But because they're quite a big chunky stamp, I thought that would work better. And on the lighter parts you could see them. On the darker parts where there was a lot of mediums already on there, you couldn't overly see them. So I'm going in with, I think it's the Arrtx marker here, isn't it, that just to add some little marks. That didn't really do much for me, I have to admit, so I thought, oh, should I go with the pencil? And I was going to colour them, and then I thought, no, that doesn't really make any sense. I want this to be a bit darker, so I used the ruler just on a few of the squares to just add a little bit of extra definition. And then I'm going in with the Pitt pen to add a few more marks, but a lot of those didn't really show up. So at this point I realised I needed some contrast, and often when you start to see a project become quite sort of all one thing, and you're not able to see what it doesn't look right, quite often what you need is some contrast. So I always reserve the right on these pages to add black, white and metallics, because you just need that in these sorts of projects. So I stamped with the black archival, and then I'm just using the Woody just to colour in those circles, which I quite liked. I quite liked just adding a little bit of that Woody colour into there. They are good fun, those pencils. And now I wanted to go the opposite way. I had that little bit of dark value. Now I wanted a lighter value. So I'm going in with the white acrylic paint and this stencil. I think it's a Tando stencil, but any stencil, you know, the whole point of these sorts of projects is that you use, you know, you can use the mediums you have, you can use the tools you have to create your own version. Now, when I was adding on the white, when it first went on, it did look very white, but as is the case with lots of these mediums, they can sort of sometimes seep up into a white paint or a white gesso, whatever you put on, and that did happen a little bit. So it did fade back a bit, so it wasn't as bright white as perhaps I would have liked. So I thought I'll go in with a little bit of gold Copic Acrea, some really, really random dots. I was really pounding that ball pen, and I just wanted to get some gold, a sort of gold splatter effect, but without splattering today. I didn't feel like I wanted to do an actual splatter. I just wanted to add a bit more defined splatter. And then I thought I will dry this off, and at the same time as drying the paint pen, I can also then use that to help me remove that tape, because it just by gently heating it helps to just soften that gum a little bit, and you can remove the tape easier. And it didn't tear in this page. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just removing the tape, and then I do believe that is just about everything that I do. So thank you ever so much for watching. Like I said before, if you have enjoyed it, please do give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already subscribed, then do please hit that subscribe button. And at the end of the video, you will see a shout out to my lovely super supporters who are my members, and I will put information about how you can find out more about the membership in the description box below. And until the next time, bye bye.